The story's protagonist, Lucas, kneels in tears before his wife, Bella. He begs her consent for a divorce, bowing to the floor. Bella smirks contentedly at his humiliation and agrees to a divorce. She sits relaxed in her chair, looking down at Lucas as he bows. By pushing the man with her foot, she wants to know what he can offer her in return for a divorce. Lucas barely holds back the tears welling up in his eyes, biting his lips from this humiliation. His life is not going well, and the reason for this is his family, namely his hated father. The old man drinks or gambles all day long and raises his voice at his now grown-up son. After his mother's death, Lucas lived with him because he was his only family, although the man did not pay any attention to his son. Lucas is forced to take on a lot of part-time jobs, in addition to his office job, to avoid going broke. He also works as a waiter in a diner to support himself. One day he sees a family, a father and a young son, who come into their diner. The child is mischievous and spills water. The father turns to Lucas for a towel or napkins. Despite the fact that the child does not realize the inconvenience caused, the father does not yell at him, but takes care of him. He realizes that he envies such family closeness in other people. At home, the father, drunk once again, asks to lend him 10 million won. Lucas is shocked by this request, since for him this is a lot of money. He tries to reason with his father, but he promises to return the loan in double amount. He talks about a new currency that is coming out that is going to change the future completely, and that he wants to invest in. Lucas replies that hard-earned money is more important to him than a dubious chance to make money. The father does not want to hear any excuses. He admits that he has always been hopeless, drank and raised his hand against his son. However, now he asks Lucas for another chance to change. The father asks for this so desperately that tears come to his eyes. Lucas is annoyed, but he cannot refuse his father and eventually agrees to his request. But he wants too much to save their family, to try to make it normal. He wants to trust his father one last time and lends him money. He actively thanks Lucas, hugs him, and promises that his son will not regret it. However, his joyful cries do not inspire Lucas with much hope for success, and for good reason, since very soon Lucas's last relative will also depart to another world. He holds his father's funeral, and thoughts about the currency he bought fade into the background. Lucas's father died in a car crash. Experts say he lost control of his car due to rain and died at the scene. Lucas feels sad about losing his last family member, but at the same time he feels liberated. With mixed feelings, he spends his leisure time drinking, just as his father had done not long ago. Left alone, he reflects on the strangeness of his life. On the television he watches while having dinner, an interview with a young man is shown. Despite his young age, he has already achieved great success and works in the investment sector. Lucas wonders if this big success is buying a house or something else. However, it turns out that it involves large assets amounting to 4 billion Korean won, which makes Lucas cough. The host asks the young man what he invested in, and he reveals that he chose Bitcoin, the very currency Lucas's father spoke of. Lucas puts two and two together and realizes that the man on screen got rich doing something he didn't believe in. He looks at his phone lying on the table, wanting to make sure he heard everything correctly, and loads up his online wallet. The host reflects on how profitable it would be to invest in Bitcoin at the very beginning of its journey. The interviewee is sure that no one expected such a rapid increase in price. But if someone had invested in it at the time Lucas's father did, his investment would have grown 2,500 times. Lucas has a huge sum of money in his account, and he almost loses consciousness, unable to believe what he sees. The rise in the price of Bitcoin has driven many around the world crazy, and Lucas feels like he is barely holding on. He has 25 billion won in his account, which is 2,500 times more than his initial investment. Lucas spends the entire evening in shock, constantly checking his online wallet. To clear his head, Lucas rides his bike outside, despite the chilly weather. Even after some time, he still can't believe that he has more than 20 billion in his account. At home, he can't stop checking the market price, which is changing at an incredible speed. So he decided to change the environment. The amount in his account increased by several hundred million overnight. Lucas can't decide whether he should sell his assets now because he already has a huge amount of money. He returns to his dilapidated home, torn apart by contradictions. He reflects that since he has been frugal all his life, he will be able to be patient. But curiosity is stronger than him, and Lucas decides to check his savings once again. He prays in disbelief, covered in sweat, because the amount changes once again. During the time he went to clear his head, his assets increased by another $2 million, meaning he now has 2 billion won. Despite his increased wealth, Lucas still goes to work in the office. The head of the department to which the hero belongs is thinking at a meeting about the company's potential clients. Company employees discuss the possible risks of collaborating with a clinic located in Busan. The department head assumes that someone from the group will need to be sent to Busan on a business trip. Apart from Lucas, no one takes the initiative in this matter. Everyone looks away. The department head tries to find out if Lucas is sure because he looks very tired, but he just spends all his time studying his assets, so Lucas says everything is fine. The head of the department decides that Lucas needs another person to help him. Then Sue, one of the most beautiful and popular girls in the company, volunteers to go with the hero to Busan. Lucas's colleagues look at her, dreaming of spending time together. Other male employees immediately start shouting that they also want to go on a business trip. But the boss decides that 2 people are enough and Lucas and Sue will go to Busan. The heroes set off by car to their destination to resolve business issues. Sue says she enjoys driving the car her brother sold her last year. Busan is Sue's hometown, and if before she often went home, now she has a lot of work and sports on weekends, so there is no time. They chat for a while, and Lucas wonders what he should do with his life, now that he has a lot of money. The journey is leisurely, and there is pleasant conversation between Lucas and Sue. When they stop to take a break from the road, Lucas buys the girl a coffee. He is surprised that his colleagues are so eager to discuss work-related issues with Sue, and she thanks Lucas for his help. Sue shifts uncomfortably and looks away, her cheeks flushing. Finally making up her mind, she approaches Lucas to see if he wants to go shopping with her that evening. Sue hasn't been shopping for a long time, and she still has something to talk about. Lucas considers her offer, but decides that a distraction would be nice. So he agrees, and later the 2 of them go shopping. The first thing they do is head to a clothing store and look at business suits. Lucas, who is no longer used to going to stores, does not understand why he cannot order the same thing online, but at a better price. Sue suddenly offers Lucas help in choosing and buying a suit, and he is surprised by such an offer. The clothes are a kind of bribe because the girl has an awkward request. Lucas has enough money for shopping, so he demands that Sue stop delaying the awkward conversation. Blushing furiously, Sue searches for words and finally asks Lucas to act as her boyfriend in front of her parents. He is stunned, but Sue explains that her younger sister already has a partner, and her parents are pushing Sue into a relationship. Blushing at such an unexpected request, Lucas tries to comprehend it, but he still agrees to help his colleague, and in the evening, they go to a restaurant. Sue's parents are very happy to meet their daughter's chosen one. They are polite to Lucas, make jokes, and try to please him. They wonder if the heroes work for the same company, and Lucas confirms this. Sue's mother is curious about how they became friends, and Lucas then explains that they bonded when he taught the girl the basics of their job. The parents are satisfied with this answer, and they continue their peaceful meal. Lucas, however, recalls a completely different emotional dinner with his ex-wife's relatives. They were negative and aggressive towards him, raising their voices. They also asked a lot of questions about the hero's parents, who had already died by that time. By bombarding him with questions about money and real estate, they pressured Lucas that after the wedding he would be obliged to help them with money. Lucas felt a terrible pressure and contempt towards him from them. Nobody cared about Lucas's own opinion, and he failed to impress his ex-wife's relatives. Sue's parents welcomed him warmly and kindly and made him feel at peace. The girl's mother asks if Lucas liked the food, and he enthusiastically praises it. The experience he shares during his fake date with Sue is completely different from what he had already experienced in his previous marriage. After the date, they said a warm goodbye to Sue's parents, who were pleased with the meeting. The girl's mother subtly hints to her that she doesn't have to return home to spend the night. Lucas reflects that it was only the money that kept him from feeling awkward that evening, as his ex-wife had trampled his confidence. Mama Sue, laughing at the girl and her chosen one, asks them to give birth to a granddaughter for them first. Lucas sweats in embarrassment at the warm welcome. He hears Sue's parents reasoning that he is quite good for their daughter. After meeting the parents, Lucas and Sue go for a walk along the beach. Sue sheepishly bows before Lucas and begs for forgiveness. She feels very awkward about this evening, but Lucas immediately tries to calm her down. The girl replies that she saw his tense expression on his face, due to bad memories from her parents' questions. Lucas realizes that Sue knows about his previous marriage and rushes to reassure her. His parents were kind to him, and the food was delicious, so he wasn't offended. But since the girl still regrets it, he suggests that she smooth things over with a walk to interesting places. Sue immediately begins to think about how to plan the best route. She is so immersed in her thoughts that she walks ahead of Lucas, and he calls her to slow down. However, he understands that Sue is simply very interested in the task she has received, and exhales with a laugh. Sue's mother's words about her being very stubborn are proven true. Suddenly, Sue's eyes turn to something on the beach, and she has an idea. She shows Lucas the place where she wants to take him. Looking at the place, Lucas feels awkward and chuckles nervously. Sue's interest turns to the fortune teller's tent, located nearby on the beach. When the heroes decide to do some fortune telling, Sue gets a good result because she has good and pure energy. The fortune teller describes the girl from a positive side, both as a colleague and as a person. Sue is very happy that luck will be on her side throughout her life. However,
The fortune teller points out that Sue recently missed a chance for something. The fortune teller says that she needs to be bolder and not hesitate. Lucas listens to their conversation with half an ear. He absolutely does not believe in these fortune telling. The fortune teller says that Sue will still have another chance, and she must be strong and attentive. Lucas can barely contain his sigh at the fortune teller's words. However, Sue persuades the man to take part in the fortune telling. The girl thinks the fortune teller is trustworthy, but Lucas has no questions he would like to ask her. He tries to refocus his attention on Sue's interests, but the fortune teller's keen gaze is already fixed on him. The first thing the stranger tells about him concerns the times of famine that Lucas lived through, and this shocks him. He is stunned that the fortune teller knows about the poverty he lived in as a youth. However, Lucas, according to the fortune teller, was able to catch great luck, and she even envies him. The fortune teller advises Lucas to travel around the world and experience many things, because this will allow him to further increase his luck. She assures him that Lucas can live the way he wants, without looking back at the past, and he will succeed. Sue casually tries to find out how lucky Lucas is in his personal life. Lucas immediately becomes immersed in thoughts about the fortune teller's words, and has no idea how he can change his lifestyle. However, he still found it pleasant to hear good predictions. When it comes time to pay for the fortune telling, Lucas is horrified by the large sum, although he has hundreds of times more in his account. Nevertheless, they leave the fortune teller in an elevated mood. Sue invites Lucas to eat conjure eel with her at the market. She takes the still thoughtful man by the jacket and leads him behind her. Lucas doesn't know what to expect from the future yet, but he is starting to feel interested in it. In total, the heroes need 4 days to set up work in Busan, after which they return from their business trip. Lucas returns from a business trip to his abandoned apartment. He immediately rushes to the computer to check the Bitcoin rate. At first, he was horrified that he had not sold the assets earlier, because he had lost 200 million. But very soon he is earning 300 million per hour. He breathes a sigh of relief, but still doesn't understand what to do with the assets. He is mentally exhausted because he spent the whole weekend watching the Bitcoin rate. He is tormented by doubts about when to sell assets and whether it is worth doing so at all. But then the weekend passes and he goes back to work in the office. During lunch, he listens to colleagues discuss real estate investments. Lucas ultimately failed to rest properly, and therefore was not focused enough. Now he has 40 billion won in his account, and is wondering if the price of Bitcoin can go even higher. The colleagues are curious to know how his and Sue's trip to Busan went, and the man says it was calm. Lucas's older colleagues make friendly jokes about this. Lucas's colleagues return to discussing investments again. The manager that Lucas is seconding in command says he is thinking about investing in Bitcoin, which makes Lucas wince. Men think that they should have invested earlier, then they would have earned more. They decide to take a closer look at the possibility of investing in Bitcoin. Talk about cryptocurrency is becoming more and more lively. This time Lucas focused his attention on the conversation. After hearing his colleagues' discussions, he decides that Bitcoin will continue to grow. This makes him, consumed by greed, want to wait and not sell his assets yet. He continues to closely monitor the price changes of Bitcoin in the market. Lucas is shocked that the price of Bitcoin has dropped dramatically recently, and he has lost 6 billion won. During another break at work, he goes out to get some fresh air. The lost money haunts him. Lucas can't come to his senses. The amount he lost while waiting could have been his salary for 140 years of work. He immediately grabs his phone to check his assets. Lucas is overcome with anxiety and wonders whether he should sell his Bitcoins immediately. There's no need to be greedy anymore. He already has more than 30 billion won. However, at this moment, Lucas's colleagues approach him, wanting to know what he is doing. Lucas jumps in surprise, not expecting to be interrupted. Lucas's colleague smirks when he sees him researching the Bitcoin rate. He asks the man if he wants to invest in Bitcoins, and Lucas sweats nervously as he thinks of an answer. Colleagues are sure that since Lucas doesn't look well, there must be some problems with the investment. He does not name the actual amount, but his colleagues still support him and wish him good luck. Lucas sighed heavily, wondering if the price of Bitcoin would really go up any further. He asks his colleagues if they have seen the recent price collapse. The men look at each other, smile, and shake their heads. Lucas tries to find out what is the reason for such smiles, and one of his colleagues says that he does not follow the news. He shows the current Bitcoin rate, and Lucas is completely speechless. The price jumped up again, and quite strongly. He even starts to cry from relief, and his colleagues courageously support Lucas. They convince us that the real takeoff is just beginning. It turns out that one of them bought Bitcoins, and has already earned more than 1 million won. However, Lucas is still terrified of falling again. The men's confidence, however, gives him hope that perhaps he can wait a little longer. And literally the next day there is a sharp jump in the price of Bitcoin. This is shaking the world community, and everyone is talking about nothing but cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is becoming a store of value superior to gold. And now, on yet another day, the price of Bitcoin reaches an exorbitant figure. As a result, Lucas's current assets exceed 100 billion won. When a man sees the final amount, he starts to get hysterical. His heart is beating wildly, he is sweating, and he cannot breathe normally. So all Lucas can do is try to breathe calmly and cry. The man forces himself to calm down, reminds himself that it is not his money until he sells his assets. Now it's really time for him to make a decision. He can't put it off any longer. So Lucas is tormented by whether he should sell everything or wait further. Not accustomed to such sums, he's afraid of making the wrong move. Greed instantly takes hold of him, convincing him that he can earn more. Dark thoughts overwhelm Lucas. He wants to earn tens of billions just by sitting still. Therefore, submitting to these thoughts, he first decides to wait a little longer. But then his father's voice comes into his memory. The one who once convinced him that everything would work out. Lucas looks at a framed photograph of his father on the cabinet. My father once believed that buying new currency was his chance to become a good person and parent. When his father spent time gambling, he always promised to buy Lucas new clothes and a bag if he won big. He had been putting life on hold all this time, and Lucas realized it was time to make a change. The next day, Sue is busy in the office, typing up important documents. She stretches with pleasure to relieve the fatigue of sitting in one place for a long time. Sue notes that Lucas never showed up at the office after they returned. The girl approaches one of the managers and presents the results of her work, and he thanks her for her work. The manager tells the girl that Lucas took a day off, so he's not in the office. Sue hopes that nothing serious happened to the man. Meanwhile, Lucas finally leaves the house and goes shopping. His first destination is a car dealership. The salon employee asks if the client has any wishes. Lucas feels awkward, but one car still catches his attention. It turns out to be a recently released white Ferrari model, designed for both city driving and sports. Lucas decides to buy it, but when the salon employee starts talking about payment options, he interrupts him. He hands over a bank card, offering to make the purchase immediately, because he plans to pay for his new car in one lump sum. The day before, Lucas sold his assets and earned $100 million, or 100 billion won. Now Lucas is young and rich, and very pleased with himself now. However, he does not immediately understand what to do with such huge amounts of money. He decides to buy a car first, and now he will have to wait for it to be delivered from the showroom. Having spent a huge amount of money by the old standards, Lucas leaves the salon. He belatedly panics at the fact that he has spent almost half a billion won. Nevertheless, he took the first step towards pleasant and important spending. He once made this list when he could only dream of wealth, and the next item on his list is buying a luxury apartment. At the real estate agency, the employees actively welcome Lucas. Lucas says he needs a spacious apartment in a new building with a view of the Han River, since this is usually very expensive real estate. The agency employees are very interested in such a price, so Lucas and his realtor go look at one of the options. It is a very large and newly built complex, and it will cost the hero 2.5 billion won to live in it. The realtor tells the man about the bonuses of the area, such as walking paths, gardens, and a swimming pool. Another big advantage of the residential complex is the gym. The apartment they're going to look at is on the 11th floor, and the realtor tells Lucas to follow him. As the men enter the apartments, the door is opened with a key card. Stepping inside, Lucas feels overwhelmed by the size of the apartment. It is so big that even a jardine light in the morning. The realtor tells the shocked client that the apartment is fully furnished with furniture made from the highest quality materials. The girl shows 2 bathrooms, each larger than the apartment Lucas currently lives in. He jokes that there is no need to worry about mosquitoes or noise outside the window, and the realtor replies that this is one of the advantages of high-rise buildings. For Lucas, this place is so luxurious that he would be willing to live in less comfortable conditions. He opens the window and is speechless at the view of the river that opens up to him. It is so beautiful and impressive that the man admires it out loud. The realtor asks the client's opinion and offers to show other options, but Lucas is satisfied with this apartment. He turns to the girl accompanying him and says that he will take this option. At the real estate agency, they prepare a contract for him, which Lucas signs immediately. Lucas is asked to pay a down payment and a brokerage commission to move in. However, the man takes out the suitcase he brought with him and replies he will pay the entire amount at once. He opens the suitcase and specifies that the amount will be paid in cash, while the girls with the car do not have cash. Lucas asks them But he knows for sure that he doesn't want the consequences, if their meaning is only in short-term pleasure. He also gently notes that he doesn't particularly want to hurt Ellie. The girl blushes and feels her breath catch in her throat from his confession, but to hide her embarrassment, she accuses Lucas of being rude. Hiding her face in the pillow, she asks the man to talk to her all night. Lucas does not object, and they begin to share impressions of their journey together. But in the end, Lucas falls asleep peacefully during their conversation. Ellie looks at the sleeping Lucas and gently touches his face, after which she carefully rolls up to the man's side and hugs him. She feels a little disappointed. But even such a first night in the same bed makes Ellie feel happy. In the morning, they pack their things and head to their final destination, New York. Lucas decided to take Ellie to the city, and at the same time see many famous places in New York. He plans to return to Seoul from the city, as it is faster than via San Francisco. Lucas asks the girl to take care of herself and wishes her luck in her life and work. Ellie rushes to him and presses herself to his chest, hugging him tightly. She thinks it was great traveling with Lucas, and asks him to contact her when he gets home. Having promised the girl that he would definitely contact her later, Lucas boards his flight and heads home. Lucas sits on the plane and thinks about the fact that the long journey to America has finally come to an end. That when he came to the States, he met a lot of interesting and good people, from startup leaders to the charming Ellie. He was also very impressed by the industry and culture flourishing in every corner of the country. And of course, the enormous capital. When Lucas sensed this huge economic flow, he became greedy and wanted to join it. He realizes that he wants to make more money because it's the most fun there is. When he lands in Seoul, he suddenly realizes that he is greeted at the airport by a familiar face. Dan arrived at the airport with a name sign and called Lucas to come to him. The man is surprised that his colleague came especially to meet him. And he's not the only one who came to meet Lucas. Sue approaches the men with a soft smile, happy to finally see Lucas after a while. Lucas is happy to see her, and Dan chuckles behind his back at his colleagues' reactions. Lucas wonders how Sue was able to arrive during working hours, but the girl replies that she was nearby. The colleagues decide that after Lucas's trip, he will want to have a bite to eat, and the man agrees and takes them to a good restaurant. At this moment, Lucas's phone signals incoming messages from Maria, although he doesn't pay attention to it. After a good time with Dan and Sue, Lucas finally comes home. He reflects that American landscapes are good, but nothing compares to his homeland. Before unpacking his luggage, he decides to check the notifications on his phone. He is delighted to receive a message from Charlie, who invites him to come to America more often. Smiles at Ellie's message, in which she talks about a successful interview at a large American company. Ellie writes that they will see each other soon, and Lucas is puzzled about the reasons for the possible meeting. But then he notices the number of messages from his ex-wife Maria. In her messages, Maria puts on a comedy act and presents herself as a tender, suffering wife. She writes how sad she is that he left for the States without telling her anything. She talks about how much she misses him,
and that only after they broke up did she realize the strength of her love for Lucas. Lucas sweats in horror when he reads these messages. He thinks that Maria has gone crazy. Subsequent messages contain information about gossip within the company, which talks about money Lucas lost on investments. The woman writes again and again, and when she doesn't receive a response, she begins to get irritated. In the end, she just bombards him with insults and threats. In her latest messages, Maria threatens that Lucas will have a hard time at work. This behavior impresses Lucas, but he immediately blocks all of his ex-wife's numbers on his phone so that she can no longer bombard him with messages. He once again admits that the divorce from Maria was one of the best events in his life. The next day he comes to work with bags full of souvenirs for his colleagues and in an elevated mood. He is alarmed by the fact that the company's employees look extremely sad. He is trying to figure out what happened to the atmosphere when several people from his department approach him. They ask Lucas about his vacation experiences and share their own investment success, which they have enjoyed thanks to Lucas's advice. Then Lucas realizes that the reason for the decline in morale in the team is unsuccessful investments in cryptocurrency and large financial losses. Suddenly, from behind, someone mockingly calls out to Lucas, who has returned from vacation. Senior colleagues with whom he has good relations, namely the manager and the head of the department, come closer to say hello. Lucas is very happy to see them both after so many days of his absence. He takes them to a meeting room to give them the souvenirs he brought, which are expensive watches. Taking the Rolex in their hands, the men look at it in shock, afraid to believe that what is happening is real. However, the man confirms that they are holding a branded item in their hands. Lucas thanks the men for their help and understanding during the last years of his work. That's why he wanted to give the manager and the head of the department memorable gifts. However, the manager suddenly frowned. His face darkened and sighed heavily. Lucas looks at this strange reaction to his gift with surprise. Men begin to make excuses that they cannot accept such an expensive and special gift. Lucas tries to reason with them, telling them not to worry about the price, since it doesn't really matter to him. The department head, sweating, says that someone is gossiping around the office that Lucas has lost his assets. Lucas immediately denies this information, which surprises and pleases the men, who note that this is not the first time the rumor has appeared. After receiving information about who the rumor monger might be, Lucas heads to the roof for a break. Almost immediately after, Jack, the colleague who let other employees down in the cryptocurrency story, rises up, pretending to care about Lucas's fate. Jack tries to find out if he is doing well financially. Lucas smirks contentedly as he begins to lead the man into his trap. In the past, Jack had always bullied him and other employees with less experience, so Lucas had a good chance to get revenge. He decides to confirm the rumors Jack has spread to see what happens. Jack always looks down on everyone if they are inferior to him in any way, and for the sake of satisfying his pride, he is ready to harm other people. Lucas knew he would be angry when he found out about his success, but he didn't think it would be this bad. Jack explains his curiosity by his concern for Lucas and his future. He puts pressure on the man, inviting him to talk freely about his problems. Deciding to play along with him in order to fulfill his plan, Lucas decides to give Jack some information. Lucas replies that things are not going well for him, and he didn't want to tell anyone. But he can trust Jack. Jack immediately beams and begins to convince Lucas that he won't tell anyone anything. Then Lucas gives him information that he is broke and has less than 10 million left in his account. Trying hard not to burst out laughing, Jack takes pity on Lucas and thanks him for sharing his problems with him. At this point, the trap that Lucas had set snaps shut, and although Jack promised not to tell anyone about Lucas's situation, he immediately goes around the office premises and starts new rumors. Because of his words, colleagues begin to gossip that Lucas sold his assets and went bankrupt. It's hard for Jack to keep his face straight. He's shaking all over with delight. People's disappointment in Lucas brings Jack unprecedented joy. He sees Lucas as nothing more than an annoying caterpillar and wants to trample him. Jack needs Lucas to remain one step below him for the rest of his life. Suddenly, the employees' chatter is interrupted by one of their colleagues. He announces that there will be a large corporate dinner party this evening. Jack snorts contemptuously, thinking that they will be offered cheap cuisine again, and he is above it. However, in reality, dinner will be at a restaurant famous for its Korean beef of the highest quality in all of Gangnam. Of course, such a promise arouses curiosity among employees. At the expensive restaurant they go to, they are greeted like important people. The company's employees are shocked and doubt that they can be and eat in a place like this. However, they decide quite quickly that since they were invited, they need to take advantage of the situation. Usually, you can only visit such a restaurant when meeting really rich people, which is why the dishes are more expensive than ordinary employees can afford. Jack wonders who might be the one who called the employees together for a corporate dinner. Suddenly, to his surprise, Lucas enters the restaurant, accompanied by the manager and the head of the department. This irritates Jack because he sees it as bragging about his closeness to department heads. However, at that very moment, Lucas takes the microphone and announces to everyone that it was he who organized this event. This shocks all of the colleagues present, except those who were aware of Lucas's plan. Lucas explains that he has no special intentions, and that this dinner is simply a way to spend time with colleagues. Since he couldn't bring many souvenirs, he decided to order a nice dinner for everyone. Lucas's colleagues are shocked by the high-quality meat that the waiters bring out. Jack realizes that the 10 million that should be in Lucas's account would not be enough for such a dinner. Everyone around starts whispering about the rumors that Jack was spreading. In the end, the idea that Jack was spreading rumors on purpose still sounds at the table. In response to this, Jack begins to aggressively argue that Lucas himself told him about his losses. Suddenly, the head of the department speaks up and casually says that Lucas doesn't make mistakes. These words attract Jack's attention, who feels ashamed. The department head continues that he also lost a lot of money on cryptocurrency. But that was only because he did not listen to Lucas. But he decided to trust Jack, who was confident in his words. And now he is spreading rumors about Lucas that are clearly false. And this irritates the man. Jack tries to think of something to justify himself, but words don't come to mind. Lucas slowly walks up to his desk and calls the man by name. The old man would not have paid attention to the gossip Jack was spreading. He simply had no choice but to accept it. But now everything has changed. With a satisfied grin, Lucas says that the evening has been prepared especially for Jack. This, of course, immediately causes Jack to fly into a rage when he realizes that he has fallen into a trap. Colleagues begin to discuss that Jack blabbed the secrets that Lucas entrusted to him. And after that, he sits there calmly. Jack feels shame and anger because he is trapped and cannot justify himself. Others laugh at his greed because he couldn't refuse expensive beef. So he came. Jack's gaze grows darker and darker, but he cannot utter a word. Lucas and his department had exchanged grins as they acknowledged their success. Suddenly, the head of the department's attention is drawn to someone who has come into the restaurant. He shudders in fear and breaks out in a sweat from excitement. Lucas, like all his colleagues, turns towards the door with excitement. The guest who comes to dinner turns out to be one of the bosses of their company. Lucas's colleagues stand up to greet their elder. but he chuckles lightly and asks to continue the dinner calmly. He dropped by for a minute to see Lucas specifically. Lucas is surprised by this turn of events and looks at his boss from under his brows. They sit down at the table, and Lucas places the meat on the grill for his boss. The man's colleagues are clearly uncomfortable being at dinner with someone from the boss, but Lucas acts calmly, taking a bottle of soju. The boss congratulates Lucas on his investment success. Lucas traditionally offers a glass and receives a drink, after which he thanks his boss. The man laughs that if he had known about Lucas's talents, he would have created an investment department in the company. Although Lucas smiles at the director's face, in his heart he still doesn't understand the reason for his arrival. Lucas knows that no matter how much publicity he gains from his investments, it's unlikely to attract the attention of the company's top brass. And at this point, the suspicion is confirmed, because the director immediately says that Lucas doesn't understand women, unlike investments. The director considers the separation from Maria to be Lucas's stupidest mistake, and such a statement makes Lucas grit his teeth. Lucas could not appreciate the rarity of this woman, since it was he who suggested a divorce, and did not try to understand her. The director mocks that in fact it was Maria who was tired of living with him. However, thanks to Lucas's stupidity, the director was given the opportunity to become happier. Although Lucas guesses the reason for the happiness, he still decides to clarify what special thing he did for the director. And it turns out that during Lucas's absence, Maria became close to the director of their company. He came to the restaurant to announce their relationship and convince Lucas to separate personal and work. He tries to praise himself by humiliating others, saying that not everyone can be with such a beauty as Maria. But Lucas, interrupting him, loudly and calmly congratulates the man. He picks up a bottle of soju and offers to fill his boss's glass. He says that he is happy for him and Maria as an ex-husband and wishes them long life. But in his thoughts, he already sympathizes with the future life of the boss. When dinner is over, Lucas goes outside to clear his head after an alcohol-fueled evening. He doesn't want to think about Maria, but he still remembers that he was once happy with her. They got together and started dating pretty quickly after some brief flirting. And after 6 months of dating, they had a traditional wedding. Lucas thinks he wanted a family so much that he tried to hold Maria's hand in his until the very end. But reality turned out to be harsh, and after the wedding, a huge difference in his and his wife's characters was revealed. Luke faced constant neglect from his wife's family, and his married life was a living hell. So in the end they divorced a year later by mutual consent. But Lucas just wanted to have a tasty dinner together and rejoice at the good news together. He wanted to feel the support of his wife during difficult times. He wanted to be a completely different parent than his father. And now, because of alcohol, he feels that he has become overly sentimental. At this time, Sue, running late, runs through the streets of Seoul to a restaurant for dinner. Each of them is lost in their own thoughts, and it seems that they are about to meet. But this does not happen. When Sue reaches the restaurant, it turns out that dinner is already over. And on his way, Lucas meets a familiar face framed by blonde hair. Not far from him stands Ellie, smiling warmly at the man. Lucas brings Ellie home to warm her up because the winters in Korea are colder than she thought. Lucas is curious about what brought the American woman to Korea. But she thinks the answer is obvious. Of course, she came because she wanted to see Lucas. She was able to get the job she wanted, but she still had about 10 days before it started, and she decided to spend them in Seoul. She asks to stay with Lucas, who is embarrassed by the fact that he only has one bed in his house. But Ellie laughs that they are both already accustomed to such conditions. Lucas is confused and excited about their meeting. He did not expect to see Ellie so soon. The girl shifts awkwardly from foot to foot, fearing rejection. Sighing, Lucas agrees to let her stay with him and suggests taking a bath to warm up Ellie. The girl obeys and goes to the bathroom, where she enjoys spending time in the water. At this time, Lucas decides to cook something hot for dinner. He washes and peels vegetables, thinking about what he can make from Korean home cooking. He hadn't cooked for anyone for a long time, but he hadn't lost the memory of how to do it. Lucas decides to cook bulgogi for Ellie, a traditional dish made from sliced meat and vegetables. At one time, Maria despised him for this dish, considering it beneath her dignity. And although Lucas was confident in the taste of his cooking, his ex-wife didn't care. After putting the food on the stove, Lucas begins to have some unpleasant flashbacks. Everything he cooked for his wife, she threw away with disgust and poured into the sink. She wanted to eat in rich restaurants, and Lucas could not offer her this, which made him feel hopeless. Now, for the first time in a long time, he is setting the table for dinner with a woman, not letting the man get deeper into his thoughts. Ellie hurriedly enters the kitchen. Dressed in a robe, she dries her hair and praises the aroma of the prepared dishes. The girl sits down at the table, assuring that she will gladly eat everything that Lucas has prepared for her. The man becomes a little nervous as Ellie cautiously tries the food. She puts a spoonful of meat and rice into her mouth and freezes for a moment. Lucas looks at Ellie almost without blinking, trying to read her reaction. But Ellie is delighted. She loudly praises Lucas's culinary talents and even blushes with pleasure. She realizes that he served her bulgogi because she had something similar at a Korean restaurant in the States. But she likes Lucas's better. Her reaction, frank and pleased, makes the man's heart beat faster, and a smile appears on his face. After a hearty dinner, the two of them wash the dishes and tidy up the kitchen. Afterwards, they change for bed and head to the bedroom, where they awkwardly shuffle around the bed. Finally, they lie down face to face, and Ellie, exhausted from the journey, falls asleep almost immediately. But Lucas can't sleep. He looks at the girl tenderly and thinks about Ellie's feelings for him. He is afraid to start a complicated relationship, but he can't help but notice that she is in love with him. His hand involuntarily reaches for her light hair, and he tucks a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. His fear of letting Ellie get closer is due to the fact that he is afraid that the girl will hurt him if he opens his heart. He thought he was doing well, but the scars from the divorce were deeper than he imagined. Yet meeting her made him doubt that solitude was the right path. The girl, half asleep, moves closer and presses herself against Lucas. He can't help but gently touch Ellie's forehead with his lips, too immersed in his thoughts about feelings. Ellie's eyes open almost immediately from the touch, and they look at each other, embarrassed. The tension between Ellie and Lucas is sparkling, and the girl gently touches his chest, not wanting to push away the one who looks at him with such warmth. Lucas pulls Ellie closer and presses his lips to hers. He can no longer resist Ellie's charm, and they spend the night together. In the morning, the story takes us to the office and production facilities of a medical company with which Lucas's firm cooperates. The company's director speaks on the phone with partners and learns with horror about several broken contracts. It turns out that several contractors have refused to work with this company in the last month. At this moment, the telephone rings loudly and the CEO grabs the receiver. He is surprised to recognize Lucas's voice on the other end of the line. After a short conversation, they agree to meet, and Lucas arrives at the office. He saw the director of this pharmaceutical company when he was still a newbie 3 years ago. The director regrets that he did not receive Lucas properly, since the meeting was arranged very quickly. Lucas asks not to apologize, because it was he who asked for a meeting without prior arrangement. The men wonder who Ellie is, who accompanies Lucas, and he explains that she works with him. in the eyes of the pharmaceutical company's employees. This is a very interesting fact. They are curious about the reason for Lucas's arrival, and he, a little worried, decides to ask a question. He asks if the director has had any difficulties running the company recently. The director confirms this, but notes that Lucas's company still gives them a lot of good orders, and there are many important projects ahead. However, Lucas shares information that another pharmaceutical company is putting pressure on this one. This level of knowledge of internal corporate matters stuns the men present at the meeting. Lucas goes on to explain that due to expansion, the company is experiencing a lack of capital, and their competitors are putting pressure on their partners, forcing them to terminate contracts. Men understand that the ultimate goal of competitors is to acquire a weaker company at a low price. Lucas is quick to reassure the men, saying that he is attending the meeting as a private individual and not as a representative of his company. He finally declares that he would like to invest his personal funds in the company of the director sitting in front of him. The director of the pharmaceutical company is very surprised that Lucas is involved in investments. From the very beginning, he was interested in the purpose for which his old acquaintance had come. But despite the fact that he needs money to support the company, he refuses Lucas's offer. He is not confident that the company will stay afloat for more than 3 months, and there is a chance that Lucas will not be able to recoup his investment. He suggests that the thousands or millions that Lucas allocated be used for something else. Lucas only sighs heavily in response to his words. Once again, he is being underestimated. He pauses for a moment, choosing his words carefully, because he wants to maintain the intrigue. The men in the company perceive this silence as a negative reaction, but Lucas suddenly asks about the amount of money that will help the company get out of the crisis. The company director does not expect this. He is still not used to seeing Lucas as more than just a newcomer. Then the man stuns him with the news that he was thinking about investing billions. Since Lucas considers the director to be an excellent businessman and respects his drug company, he wants to support it financially. He invites men to review the total amount of assets in his account and name any amount they need. The company representatives are speechless from shock and can only look at Lucas's phone. They understand the seriousness of Lucas's intentions, who is ready to invest any amount in the company. After this, it is simply impossible to refuse him, and the men prepare the necessary package of documents. Ellie immediately takes up their research, noting that Lucas has chosen a good target for investment. Despite the difficult situation due to construction and loans, the company has high productivity and many clients with long-term contracts. Therefore, by solving the company's current problems, there is a chance that income will increase significantly. The director, listening to Ellie and Lucas's conversation, which they were conducting in English, once again tries to find out what the girl does. Then Lucas fully introduces her as a financial expert working in a large American company. This gives an understanding that he was serious from the very beginning. The director finds it hard to believe how the man became such a successful investor in 3 years. They seal the deal and shake hands contentedly. As an additional gift, the company director offers him a business card from a representative of a bio company, which can also be invested in. After a business meeting, Lucas and Ellie drive around town in his Ferrari. The girl thanks Lucas for the fact that her first job was to evaluate an investment worth 40 billion won, and it was a useful experience. But she immediately begins to laugh at her companion, asking about payment for her work. Lucas asks what Ellie would like to receive as a reward for her efforts. The girl suddenly smiles slyly and says that she has an idea. There is something she has long dreamed of doing with Lucas. So very soon, Lucas finds himself handcuffed to a chair in some basement. Rushing with the wife, Ellie suggests that they have some fun together. It turns out that the girl brought Lucas to a classroom that she read about on the internet. She tries to find out if he found the prison escape game funny, and Lucas surprised that he didn't mind, but was confused by the handcuffs. Suddenly, Ellie sighs that she regrets working so far away from Lucas, in another country. She would like to see him every day. Beginning to develop feelings for the American woman, Lucas for the first time thinks about buying the company where she works. However, at present, he does not have the money needed for this. However, opening a business in social commercial district can change everything. While he is speaking, Ellie becomes concerned with the company's drawing to some establishment. It is essential way to watch movies together, and which couples use for dates. Although Lucas is not eager to give up the place, Ellie is very impressed and wants to spend time with the man. When they get inside, she is very excited about her idea. The American woman's duty of immediate confidence to the immediate confidence to the company of the director was what Manhwa was ready to do. The man sees the girl before Manhwa becomes real. He respectfully declines Manhwa, despite his great success. The company's employee believes he makes no worse than Lucas, and the situation is on fire. Meanwhile, Lucas is already in the room, responding to the man. As the Lucas is ready to make the most of the situation, Ellie wants to watch the movie as fast as possible, and Lucas points it out. And the employee decides to come back to town. The employee decides to come back to town. He decides to watch the show inside the room. Now he's eager to do the science to the room. Now he's eager to do the science to the room. Before